Hi, good morning, everybody. So in small group with Mr. Brown, you used area models in order to help you solve how to find common denominators, same like denominators, and write multiplication sentences finding those common denominators. On this section in small group, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be using those number sentences, those multiplication sentences to find the common denominator, but no area model. We don't even have a space for it back on this page. So let's start with 3/5. 3/5, I'm going to start with 3/5, and we're going to use multiplication. To find the common denominator of 5/6, we're going to use 5/6 denominator to multiply with 3/5 to find our common denominator. I'm going to put that 6 in purple. And now 3/5 has changed to 3 times 6 is 18, and 5 times 6 is 30. So now we have 18/30ths. Okay, now let's work with 5/6. I have 5/6. We're going to use multiplication to find the common denominator. Instead, though, we are going to be taking this 5, the 3/5, the 5, the denominator, we're going to multiply by 5 on the numerator and denominator. And now we have 25/30ths. And see how the denominators are the same here? Boom. Boom. We have common denominators because we used the opposite denominator to multiply by. Boom. And now we can look at the fractions and know which fraction is closer to a whole, 25/30ths or 18/30ths. And you should see by now that 25/30ths is only 5 away from 30/30ths. 5 away from 30/30ths, one whole. So we can see that, guess what, 5/6 is indeed a greater fraction. All right, let's go to the next problem here, B. We'll do this one together, and then obviously I'm going to want you to try C and D on your own and check your work. So let's write down 2/6. 2/6 with multiplication. And remember, you're just going to use the opposite fractions, denominator, to multiply by. So we're going to use this 8, and we're going to multiply 2/6 times 8 on the numerator and denominator. And 2 times 8 is 16. And 6 times 8 is 48. And that is, we are going to be finding the common denominator. Let's do 3/8. We have 3/8. And we are going to use the other fractions denominator in order to find the common denominator. We're going to multiply. So we are going to use this 6, and we're going to multiply the 3/8 times 6 on both the numerator and denominator to find the common denominator. We have 3 times 6 is 18, and 8 times 6 is 48. There we go. We have common denominators. Oh, wrong one. We have common denominators, boom and boom. And now we can compare them. So now this is a lot easier for us to compare. We can look at them, both fractions, and know that 18/48 is closer to that whole. And we know that 18/48 is the larger fraction. So 3/8 is the larger fraction. See how it's connected? Boom, right there. Okay. Now, let's look at C and D, looking at fractions that are greater than 1. So you're probably asking yourself, hey, how do we figure out when we have a fraction greater than 1, or improper fraction, 7/5, 10/8? How do we solve it? Well, let's break it up. So let's break 7/5 into a mixed number. So remember, we are going to circle it. We are then going to break it into its whole. So 5 is the denominator, so I have 5/5 is the whole. And what is needed, what is the rest that it belongs to this fraction? Well, we have 5 in the numerator, and how much do we need to get to the 7? Well, we need 2 more. And the denominator stays the same, and we have 1 2/5. So it actually looks like this. 1 2/5 as the mixed number. Let's try it for 10/8. So let's do 10/8 the same way. Circle it. And let's make this into its whole. And so we can look at 8/8 as the whole. Okay. And what we can do is we look at the rest, and we know that 2/8 is the rest of it. Because this equals, when it's combined, it equals 10/8. So when we add 8 and 2 and equals 10, the denominator stays the same. That's how we find the mixed number. So this is actually, this is 1 2/8. All right. So we are no longer, we're looking at the mixed number here, and we're no longer looking at the whole. What we can look at now literally is just the fraction. We can just really just take this out of the equation here, this 1 and this 1, and we can just look at 2/5 and 2/8 now. And we can just do the multiplication sense to find which fraction is larger, 7/5 or 10/8. So let's do this. I'm going to write down 2/5. A little ridiculous on how much we're writing here, but we can at least get this down. The denominator is 8, so we're going to multiply by 8. And I have 16, 5 times 8 is 40. So we have 16/40ths here. Man, that's crazy. So let's change this 7/5 to 16/40ths. All right. And then let's do the opposite to 2/8. We have 2/8 here. Multiplied by. And then we're going to use the other denominator, 5, to find the common denominator for this one. So 10/40ths. Okay, so this is actually 10/40ths. Nice. All right, so now looking at 16/40ths and 10/40ths, you'll know that 7/5, this is much larger. It's closer to that whole. And so that's probably the most complicated one you'll get is finding improper fractions. But what we can do now is I'll do another one for you, another example of finding the improper fractions. So let's do 4/3 and 6/5. So I should know by now that 4 3/3 is 1 1/3. Okay, 1 1/3. When I break it apart, and take out the whole, what's remaining is 3 1/3. See? That equals it. So that's 1 1/3. So I'm actually going to erase this because we're not going to have much space if I keep on doing that. So we're going to do 1 1/3 here. All right. And then 6/5, I take out 5/5. That's the whole. And then I have 1/5 left over. So it's 1 1/5. So I'm going to erase that. I'm going to put 1 1/5. 1 1/5. All right, now we just have to compare them. But we're not looking at the whole again, remember? We can just look at these fractions, 1/3 and 1/5, and we can use multiplication to tell us what the common denominators are and find, which one is a larger unit. And so let's do it. So let's put down 1/3. Now I'm going to use the opposite denominator to multiply by, which is 5. And we have 5/15. I'm then going to use 1/5. And we're going to use multiplication. And I'm going to use the other denominator, 3, to multiply and find the common denominator. And I get 3/15. So we know now, yes, you can see we have 5/15, and that is going to be the larger fraction here. All right, so this is a lot of work. Wow, tons of work here. But this will be really good and useful for you to look at for your homework assignment tonight.